I used to think that the loot only changed socially, but that was just a symptom. The real shift was much bigger. Games are systems, and no system changes in isolation. Raiding is one of the most fun activities in World of Warcraft, at least for me. There is something special about being in a group, 20 people standing side by side, fighting for a cause, together learning, vibing, improving, and reaching the good goals. But all of those efforts and pulls and vibes and learnings are moving towards something. It's kind of going to the gym. You don't go to the gym just for the gym, at least most of us. We go to get rigged and get better, and getting stronger and getting rigged in WoW means the loot. A shiny new weapon or a gear that makes you badass, or maybe some pieces of gear that makes your number go up. Oh, I like that. And that's where the story begins. Humans are all same. Whenever there is currency, power, status, we start fighting for it. And honestly, that's kind of the story here. Back in the day, we had rules. Group loot. Those little dice icons you could accidentally press. And of course, if you were a hunter, you somehow always had the option. Free for all, which really meant whoever was faster. Young? And then we had in the betweens. Round robin, need before greed, and other stuff. And then, oh boy, master loot. So imagine this. We gave one person authority to distribute the power, or money, or status. We had them control and trust that they will do the right job. I don't know, but have we ever seen that before in society, in government? And here, we with 20 people or 25 or 40 kill a boss and decide to give someone the authority to give the loot and give the reward and give the power. And what could possibly go wrong? We all know what's gonna happen next. Of course we didn't just accept the chaos, we innovated. And by we, I mean a bunch of players trying to outsmart each other. So let's review the greatest innovation of Raid Night politics. MS over OS. Sounds fair until the guy that did nothing wins the role, and technically it's his main spec, Soft reserve. You reserve the item that you really need before the raid. So now, instead of competing against 20 people, you compete against 5 people that thought they're 5 head like you that wanted those loots. Loot Council. In theory, it's a strategic distribution of loot for the progress. Great. In reality, Friend Council. And they always say it was better for the guild. DKP. Earn point, spend points. Does that even exist right now? And then GDKP. Gold DKP. The purest form of democracy and capitalism together, It's the perfect loot system. And unless you had a problem with your wallet, Probably should not praise that one too much because I like my account. And honestly, each of them, not you Loot Council, had one perfect idea. You could choose your flavor of chaos. Unless you're like me and into GDKP, and then you should cry quietly. Section 2. The start of a new era. As always, we complained about ninja looters, about favorism, about stacked class funneling gear. And to their credit, Blizzard listened. Blizzard Entertainment. Over time they introduced something new. Personal loot. And on paper, it was perfect. No more ninja looting, no more Loot Council playing politics, no more stack class manipulating drop chances. Everyone had a fair shot. You could even trade items if you don't need them. Fair, flexible, modern. It was clean, so efficient, so fair, that eventually the master loot was removed entirely. No more loot drama, no more spreadsheets, no more external tools, no more capitalism, no more democracy, no more corruption. Just fairness. Now, to be fair, the game added a lot of good things over the year. Transmog gave us identity beyond stats. You could finally look the way you wanted, not just the way your gear forced you to. Item variety exploded. There were more builds, more combination, more experimentation. And when everyone can look however they want, gear stops telling a story. You no longer see someone in a Stormwind and you immediately know what they killed. You remember Thunder Fury? The moment you saw it on someone, you know Molten Core repeated kill years, a guild that was serious, sulfurous, a TH, full tier 3 from Naxxramas. You could read someone's entire raiding history by just looking at them. Now, everything looks incredible. And none of it tells you anything. And when the item bloat increases, there are fewer big items, fewer moments where the entire raid gasps, fewer pieces that everyone recognizes from the cross of the room. We gained freedom, but we may have lost visibility. As I said, everything is a trade-off. We can't blame everything on the loot, but I really do think that there are decisions that we never really questioned. Because the loot doesn't exist in isolation. It affects class balance, it affects raid composition, it affects how we value rarity. And when diminishing return on a stacking gear disappears, the entire ecosystem shifts. So let's go through them one by one. Section 3. The thing that we lost. Let me take you back to a memory of mine. I was playing Wrath of the Lich King Classic version, and I remember being genuinely frustrated. Not because I was playing badly, not because the raid was failing, but because of loot. There were these freaking shamans. They self-reserved the best caster items like trinkets and weapons, and they just kept winning everything else too. And every group wanted them, not because they were topping the DPS, but because they were getting geared and they had a lot of utility too, you know. And eventually, they were doing more damage than me, not because of skill, because they were almost full beasts when I almost had 1 or 2 pieces. And at that time I just annoyed. But looking back, I think something important was happening there. There was a system quietly balancing things out. If you played a less popular class or a weaker performing spec, you usually got more loot, you geared faster, you caught up. The system wasn't fair, it was self-correcting. Now, imagine that in the same situation with personal loot. That shaman doesn't get extra gear anymore. Because drops are tied to a spec, fixed, equal, and controlled. So now, Blizzard has a problem. Either you leave certain classes weaker and the entire community suffer, or you push everything towards equality. Same damage, same AoE, same utility. Everyone becomes viable. Everyone becomes similar. And here's the real issue. You can't perfectly balance a system like this. It is impossible. Players will always find the best build, the best class, the best strategy. And when they do, they complain. So Blizzard responds with more tuning, more adjustment, more patches. Balance becomes a moving target, a constant chase. More developer time, more complexity, less room for meaningful design and, innovation. Systems got harder to understand. Changes become invisible unless you're actively searching for them. And slowly, classes begin to lose their identity. The hunger for fairness turned into a need for perfection. And that's how balance becomes hyperbalance. Now, a lot of people talk about how the new loot system killed the social aspect of the game. And they're right. Less talking, less arguing, less actions, less interaction overall. That mattered. But I think we had been looking at it the wrong way, because it wasn't the change, it was the symptom. Game systems doesn't exist in isolation. When you change loot, you don't change how players interact. You change incentivizes, you change class balance, you change how groups are formed, and how the entire game evolves over the time. The situation that I talked about earlier, where certain classes naturally geared faster, that wasn't just unfair loot. That was a system quietly shaping balance. And when that system disappeared, the consequences didn't stop at less social interactions. They spread everywhere, not only social aspect, into balance, into class design, and into meta itself. So yeah, we lost something special. But what really changed was the entire ecosystem around it. Before, loot wasn't just a reward, it was a pressure. And when we removed that, we didn't remove the problem. We just moved it to another place. Now that pressure sits somewhere else. In balance patches, in constant tuning, in trying to make every class equal, in a system that never truly can be equal. We replace a self-correcting system with a system that needs to be corrected constantly. And that's why sometimes it still feels off. Not because the game is less fair, but because it has to work way harder to stay fair. Maybe the old system wasn't broken. It was just doing the thing that we didn't understand.